Hey, Dad. Hey, honey. As I got into the car, I noticed my father looked troubled, clutching his steering wheel, staring straight ahead as if something was really bothering him. About what happened yesterday. I'm sorry for yelling at you. Does your cheek still hurt? No, it's nothing to worry about. I mean it. I shouldn't have laid a finger on you. You know that you're my most precious daughter. You're all that I have. Yet he couldn't bring himself to say what he could never say to me for such a long time. I always wanted to hear those words, to affirm how he really felt, but I guess even now he couldn't say it to me. I turned my head to look out the window. There was no point in waiting for something that was never going to come. And like that, he started to drive and the conversation between us ended. I decided to focus my attention on the passing scenery. We were taking the usual route to Grandfather's house. It was located within the vicinity of the school district, but it was still pretty far from the school and from where our house was. He had always lived alone. He insisted on doing things by himself, even at his age, living in such a large house. I wondered, did he pass away with no one at his side as well? It sounded so lonely and sad. It was strange that he decided to living all alone in this large estate. If anything, he could have lived with us, though he and my father probably wouldn't have given each other the silent treatment the entire time. Maybe living alone was preferable to that. I actually hadn't visited him for quite a while. Visits to his house were most frequent when I was a child. I've grown up long since then. The last time I visited, though, I thought he looked just as unusual as usually was. I thought he looked just as he usually was, happy and healthy. But things changed. In the back of my mind, I thought that he would have had to leave one day. It wasn't like humans could live forever. So why did my heart still feel so heavy? The car ride was mostly spent in silence until he spoke up again. How was school? Maintaining your grades, I hope? Yeah. I've been trying my best so far. Trying? That's not really doing the best you can, is it? With my father, only some words I say were filtered through his ears. It was difficult to keep up a conversation without eventually talking about academics or my future, even if it was something loosely based on it. He always found a way to integrate it whenever we talked. Anyway, your belongings are in the trunk. There isn't a lot, so I'm sure you can manage bringing them inside the house. After all, you're on the road to being independent now. Yes, I can manage on my own. The usual silence resumed between us. I really wasn't sure what to say around him, especially when most of the time we didn't share the same opinions. One question did linger in my mind, though. If he was going to justify acting so nonchalant at Grandfather's funeral, I had the right to at least know why. I'd leave it alone. There's no use talking to him about this. It would be like reopening a wound or reapplying a bruise. I sighed. He gave me a side glance out of curiosity, but didn't pursue it further. Typical. I leaned against the car door and stared out the window. I really couldn't think. What would this place be like? I had been to my grandfather's house before, but it was one thing visiting, and it was another thing actually living there. How would I manage living on my own without any training to really care for a house? I knew that naturally the bills would be paid by my parents, who inherited grandfather's stocks to the corporation, but I had never lived independently before. Okay, good. That's what I was worried about initially. Sadly enough. Grandfather dies, you get the house. Do I have to pay for the bills? Thinking about it made me feel like some kind of bird being pushed out of the nest. Though I was technically an adult, I felt unprepared and a bit daunted at the prospect of actually moving into a new place. Most people my age would be ecstatic about moving out. After all, it would symbolize some kind of change in their lives, like being on the road to independence. But I felt like it was nothing of the sort. I really hoped I wouldn't let my parents down. I wouldn't want to let my grandfather down. What would he be saying right now? I gazed upon the passing clouds in the sky. If you're out there, grandfather, how would you be doing? Would there be anything you'd want me to tell at this moment? What do you want to tell me at this moment? And of course, no answer. What was I doing, searching for an answer in a heaven that would or would not exist? I ducked my head to stare at the blur of trees and cars from the window. My head definitely going into the clouds thus there at the moment. Either way, I found myself being driven off to my new home. The car rolled to a stop and I drifted out of my thoughts. Here we are. Go on in. Alright, tell Mom I love her. Alright. I love you, Dad. No. Make sure to come by and visit us often. No. I'm going to visit. I'm going to miss you lots. Nothing other than a blank stare. I paused for a bit, reaching for the car door handle, waiting for any form of a goodbye, but he didn't speak again. I sighed and exited the car, hearing my dad pop open the trunk and saw 2 large bags I packed last night that were large enough to carry only the things I needed. I took them out, placed them on each shoulder, and closed the trunk. He then drove off, leaving me alone in front of the mansion. I watched the blue car fade into the distance of the road before turning to see my new home. There it is. It's huge. My grandfather gave me this. It's hard to believe. The house was framed by a set of tall gates. I hesitantly pushed them aside to take in the entire estate. The house still looked like it when I last visited him. At a glance, it seemed kind of intimidating with its size, though if I came closer, it was clear that there was more to it than that. The brick walls were framed by shrubbery and lovely flowers, giving it a homey and welcoming look. But in contrast, the tall doors into the house gave me a feeling of grandeur. Who knew what was waiting for me? But I wouldn't back down at this moment. I took out the key to the front doors and unlocked them. Well, might as well make myself at home. I'll be staying here for quite a while anyways.